Today is the 7th day of the Republican government shutdown.
Locked up, locked down, and closed for business.
And I had an opportunity to set the record straight with Representative of California's 17th District, Congressman Ro Khanna.
The Republicans have the votes to keep government open. For all the people saying Democrats are nowhere to be found, how can you blame the Democrats? We don't have a voice in Washington. I don't think anyone would argue that the Democrats have somehow a lot of power in Washington, D.C.
We had the opportunity to talk about everything from the Gaza Freedom Flotilla to Stephen Miller justifying the domestic terrorism of ICE agents while blaming the Democrats for the same thing, the future of the Democratic Party and how to fight back against Trump, as well as the shady chagrin of Republicans to release the Epstein files.
And that's why they're afraid. They were trying to protect rich and powerful men who abused underage girls and who covered up for Epstein's crimes. It's horrific. This is about survivors. This is about protecting children. This is about standing up to pedophiles.
Without further ado, I hope you enjoy the interview and be sure to stick around to the end for some powerful words from the congressman on the power of speaking out and fighting back. Congressman Ro Khanna, thank you so much for joining the program. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I want to start with what may seem like a trivial question here, but I know a lot of our viewers, myself included, who voted for a Democrat in the last election, and even the ones who didn't, right now feel kind of angry. They're frightened of what is going on. They feel their needs aren't being met by the current government. And I just want to ask you, how are you feeling in this moment, both personally and about the state of our union?
I'm disgusted by what's going on. I mean, the assault on freedom of speech, where people are being targeted if they're quote unquote anti-American, where comedians are being outlawed like Jimmy Kimmel. I'm disgusted by what happened in Chicago. The ICE agents there ripping apart cruelty, kids from their mothers. I'm disgusted by what the president has done to prosecute his political enemies, subverting the rule of law. And frankly, I don't think our party has done enough to stand up to this president and stand up for our values. We had too many Democrats vote for Laken Riley, which was just a blank check, basically, to deportation without due process. We had Senator Schumer fold in the first round of shutdowns, not standing up strongly. We have not seen active leadership in the Congress saying we stand for the rule of law, we stand for American principles, we stand for the idea that immigrants actually contribute to this country and not just demonizing them. But I think there is a growing understanding that our base wants stronger leadership. Our base doesn't want us to hide under the table. Our base wants us not just voting, but active. And we're starting to see that in the shutdown fight.
Totally agree there. And I mean, it feels like McCarthyism, a lot of what is happening to some extent, to your point with the freedom of speech stuff. Is that a problem from the top down with Democratic leadership, given the minimal control that Democrats have right now over the federal government? I mean, what do you see as adequate pushback to these things when Trump is steamrolling through the courts and, like you said, deporting people without due process? What here can we do to push back?
Stand up and speak up. We know that it makes a difference. When people around this country stood up for Jimmy Kimmel, not only was he reinstated, but Nexstar and Sinclair folded and said, no, we're going to carry him. When Senator Van Hollen went and met with Obrego and people around the country started to speak up for that, the reality is he was returned to the United States and had some due process. And the point is that now in towns where people are active, the immigrants are being much more respected, in that people know that there's at least a light on what's going on. I think what is absolutely important is for the Democrats in Congress to be speaking to the threats. I mean, NSM 7, which is a presidential executive order that basically says we can investigate any nonprofit or any left-wing group that has ideas that are anti-capitalist, anti-American. There was silence in Congress, and then Ken Kippelstein, an independent journalist, basically uncovered it And I and a few people started to speak up. We need to be a voice, not just on the economic harm this president's doing, but the harm he's doing to speech, the harm he's doing to our values, the harms he's doing to the Constitution, and not be afraid. And we need to be speaking out against the Gaza war. I mean, and against the big money in politics, and not be afraid to talk about the fact that just the other day there were American citizens in California from my state who were on the flotilla trying to get humanitarian aid into Gaza. They were arrested by Netanyahu's government. The family member called me on Saturday night, distressed, saying, I've called my senators, I've called the government, no answer. I can't talk to David. No one's willing to put us in touch. And then we mobilized yesterday a letter with 24 members of Congress in California, including Speaker Pelosi. And just this morning, they've been released to Jordan. But my point is, what the American people want is a Congress willing to stand up for them and take on these issues.
Yeah, completely understand that, and appreciate. I saw that that letter that you signed. I'd been following the flotilla pretty closely. I saw, Greta Thunberg was released and stuff, so I appreciate the work that you're doing there. I wonder, do you? I don't know if you've seen any of the ongoing negotiations or Trump's plan for the future of Gaza. Do you think that is an adequate plan to end the war there, or?
Look, I hope for the sake of the humanity that the war ends, and there are aspects to the plan that are reasonable, which is that
Right.
Israel needs to withdraw, that Hamas needs to unconditionally release the hostages. And the place where I have a disagreement with the plan is that Donald Trump and Tony Blair shouldn't be ruling over Gaza. There needs to be independent elections in Palestine, or an independent government agency in Palestine that doesn't have Hamas. I mean,
Right.
Hamas should be disarmed. Hamas is a terrorist organization. So I have said I'm supportive of the planned steps because I'm supportive of anything that ends this war and returns the hostages. But I don't agree with the governance structure over Gaza.
I think that's totally fair and completely agree there. I do want to shift focus quickly to, what the big thing that's going on domestically here. Obviously, the government shutdown. We're in day 7 right now. I think you turn on the news and you just get bombarded with, you know, partisan talking points, particularly from the right. And I just want to quickly get your understanding of what caused this shutdown, and what the Democrats hope to achieve. Because in my mind, the ask on the Democratic side seems pretty simple here, right? Extending ACA tax credits, and rolling back the devastating, deadly cuts to Medicaid from Trump's bill. I mean, am I severely misinformed here? Because you turn on Fox News and you would be hard pressed to think it's all giving healthcare to illegal aliens and transgender surgery for everyone.
Well, first of all, and this point needs to be emphasized, the Republicans have the votes to keep government open.
Mhm.
They have 51 votes in the Senate. They have the votes in the House. They already passed the budget, and Donald Trump can sign it. For all the people saying Democrats are nowhere to be found, how can you blame the Democrats? We don't have a voice in Washington. I don't think anyone would argue that the Democrats have somehow a lot of power in Washington, D.C. Now
Right.
they say, well, this is going to mean ending the filibuster. Well, they've ended the filibuster already for confirming judges. They've ended the filibuster already for confirming presidential appointments. So why can't you have an exception to the filibuster to say, if it means keeping government open, we can do something without the filibuster? The blame on this is that the Republicans are unwilling to pass a budget. Now, if you want Democratic votes, well, the Democrats are not going to vote for something that doubles healthcare premiums for 24 million Americans. We're just not going to do it. We're not going to say that you're a family of 4 and your premiums are going to go up from $4,000 to $8,000. If you want our votes, you need to, at the very minimum, extend the tax credits for the Affordable Care Act so that premiums don't double in this country for anyone on the exchanges. And by the way, premiums are going to hike 20, 30, 40% for everyone because of the Medicaid cuts and if those tax credits aren't extended. That's all the Democrats are asking. We have a lot of other things we could ask, but that's all we're asking for our votes. But it should be very clear that this is a Republican shutdown, that they could open the government tomorrow.
Completely. And I mean, it just seems so disingenuous to hear Mike Johnson say that Republicans are, the ones who want healthcare for everyone.
Let me look right into the camera and tell you very clearly. Republicans are the ones concerned about health care. Republicans are the party working around the clock every day to fix health care.
No, it's okay. That's not technically looking right into the camera.
When the proof in the pudding speaks, exactly in the opposite direction. So I wonder, especially as a congressperson, like what is the messaging here that you find really translates to those voters who believe these things coming out of the Republican side? Because as we've seen for years now, it's just constant lying, finger pointing, and misinformation, and frankly propaganda that's just thrown out, and somehow people believe it. I don't think people on the Democratic side necessarily believe it. But like, what is the pushback to that? Are there conversations you have with colleagues where you're like, how do you justify lying to the American people like this? And like, I'm very curious, because as just a person, as an American citizen, a California citizen at that, it feels like I'm living in this alternate reality sometimes when I watch Republicans speak, and I don't know if they know that, or how people make the truth known.
Well, you ask a very good point. This is why your work is so important. This is why members of Congress and Democratic side need to get beyond Meet the Press and CNN, which I love doing, and get on podcasts and get out there and do town halls and overcome the disinformation campaign. Look, we're not going to change the hearts and minds of the Republican leadership. They're in it to win.
Right.
And that would be naive to think that somehow after 2 Trump terms that they're going to play by the rules. They're not. They're going to tell mistruths. They're going to exaggerate. They're going to take a law which Reagan passed, which says that anyone who shows up at an ER a hospital needs to be treated, even if they're undocumented. You don't ask for their visa. You check their vital signs. That was a Ronald Reagan law, and they're saying that which is less than 1% of Medicaid funding is somehow the Democrats funding illegals. It's just total lies and cruel.
Yeah.
We should ask the American people, do you think if someone who's undocumented, who's having a heart attack, shows up to an ER room, that the doctor should treat him? My guess is it's an 80-20 issue that Americans will say that, of course, that person should be treated. But the reality is they're lying. So we need to be strong on our side and get the facts out and be and be present. And you're doing a good job of that.
Well, I appreciate that. I think one of the other things that I wanted to touch on briefly regarding Republican lies is the current and what has been an ongoing situation with the Epstein files, the sensationalism and the scandal around that. It feels like even Mike Johnson not swearing in this new Democratic member is another attempted blockade from releasing that information. In your mind, how do we, to this point as well of getting the information out there, how do we get any forthcoming information released without it being a circus? From the Republican side.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't just feel like that. It's the truth. He literally doesn't have us voting this week because he doesn't want Adelita Grijalva to be sworn in, because that would be the 218th vote on Massey and my discharge petition to release the Epstein files. We have gotten Lauren Boebert, Nancy Mace, Marjorie Taylor Greene, all to sign this. And it's been months of effort. And we had a press conference scheduled today in DC with the survivors, and he wanted to cancel all of that. So he's not having us vote. Can you imagine that, not having us vote when we should be at least voting to pay our troops during a shutdown? We're not even voting on that because they're so scared, the Republican leadership, of swearing in Adelita Grijalva. Once she's sworn in, the discharge petition will have 218 signatures. We'll get a vote within 7 legislative days. There'll be a vote to release all the files, and it'll be the first time that a Republican Congress has voted against Donald Trump. It would be pretty historic, and that's why they're afraid. They were trying to protect rich and powerful men who abused underage girls and who covered up for Epstein's crimes. It's horrific. This is
Yeah.
about survivors. This is about protecting children. This is about standing up to pedophiles. The QAnon movement was all about pedophiles. I mean, how can you be okay with a government that's protecting powerful people who abused young girls?
100%. And I even think that, signing on those people like Massey and Boebert, like to the far MAGA right of the parties, just speaks to how much, the American people actually want this information and how much the Republican Party is just in the wrong here. And I very much appreciate that while doing this, Representative, you are keeping the victims at the heart of it here, because I think they deserve that kind of respect. On that note, I kind of do want to just shift focus a little bit here to Stephen Miller, Trump's deputy chief of staff, and some of the atrocious things that he's been saying recently, casting blame, calling Democrats terrorists. I have a couple of tweets here that I'll throw up on screen, but one of the most insane ones to me was this one. I think it was from the other day, October 5th. Stephen Miller tweeted out, "At the heart of the 2024 campaign was President Trump's pledge to halt the border invasion and carry out history's largest deportation, the first two promises in the GOP platform." President Trump won a colossal landslide. Since then, there has been a nonstop campaign of criminal obstruction, threats, harassment, doxing, and grave physical attacks and riots against ICE agents, stoked endlessly by Democrats. To reverse the election result by violence, this large-scale political violence is domestic terrorism. Congressman, are you and your colleagues domestic terrorists?
Obviously not, and that kind of rhetoric is dangerous at this kind of moment in our country after the awful Charlie Kirk assassination. Both sides, frankly, need to watch what we're saying and trying to understand how we get to a better place in this nation. And I think it's perfectly appropriate to say that we need secure borders, but that we can't have ICE agents engaged in cruelty where they're raiding a building in Chicago and parading kids who are half naked in the streets and tearing them away from their families and harassing American citizens. You can have two thoughts in this country: that we are for a secure border and orderly process on immigration, and that we need to make sure that our law enforcement aren't engaged in cruelty. That's what the American people want. Why can't we have that conversation rationally, without calling each other names, without stoking violence? That's what I think that the American people want most. And I have tried to model that. I don't always live up to that, but I don't hurl insults at the other side. I don't hurl. I've engaged in back and forth with Stephen Miller. I try to make my point on the principles of the issue and to win the argument, because I think that that what I articulated is a common sense position on immigration that the vast majority of Americans would agree with.
I completely agree with that, and I understand. This is a more of a philosophical question, so I do apologize for getting into this territory of speculation. But at what point is there just no talking with these people? Stephen Miller specifically, there seems to be this paradox of tolerating the intolerant, where you get to a certain level of sheer intolerance, a lack of human empathy for people, for children, for ICE agents dragging people out on the streets, beating people at peaceful protests, like I saw in here in Los Angeles. Like, where can you find common ground with some of these people when they are so hell-bent on going so far to the right that it starts to look like 1940s Germany here?
I don't think you find common ground with someone like Stephen Miller, but I think you expose and debate his ideas. I think that the way to convince Americans that that our side is right is to say that we are for secure borders, but we're not for ICE agents acting like thugs. We're not for deportation without due process. That what Stephen Miller's project is totally futile, because even if he deports 3,000 people a day, we're still going to have 10 to 12 million people here who are undocumented, and that does nothing, and that he's not deporting criminals. This is what he promised in the campaign. He's deporting people who have young children. He's deporting people who are working on our fields of agriculture. And by deporting them, he's increasing food prices for Americans. By deporting them, he is increasing home prices and construction prices in America. By deporting them, he's increasing the costs of staying at a hotel or restaurants. And by the way, he's deporting people who are paying their taxes and just want to stay and work in this country. Now, if we don't respond, if we don't engage in debate, and if we just hurl insults, then people aren't going to hear that our position is actually the common sense American position. We've got to articulate our view and take on Stephen Miller's views and say, no, we're not an open border party. We're a party of secure borders, but of humanity, And then our vision is that if you're an immigrant here who's paying taxes and law abiding, that there should be some path to legalization, because that's actually going to lower prices, it's going to help economic growth, and it's going to be good for the country.
Yeah, I mean, that all makes sense to me. I appreciate that response, and I will do the duty of humiliating Stephen Miller so that you can make those really good arguments. Congressman, thank you so much.
Ridicule has a place in American politics when people
I think you're right. I think you're right, especially when it comes
policies.
Yeah, I think especially when it comes to fighting fascism, humor is a very powerful tool, and we use that pretty extensively here. I really appreciate your time, Congressman. I have one more question before I let you get out of here. And on that note of the encouragement that you're giving here, what is your advice for common everyday people who want to actively oppose this administration, but are maybe now afraid for their safety, their jobs, to speak out?
I appreciate the courage of those who are speaking up, the millions of people at the No Kings rallies, the folks who are standing up to make sure that ICE agents are following the law, the folks who are speaking up on social media. I understand it doesn't come without some risk. It would be wrong for me to say that it's risk-free. But a lot of people in this country have taken a lot of risk for our freedoms. Whether it was the people who scaled the cliffs of Normandy in World War II, whether it was John Lewis who was beaten on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, whether it was our founders who fought the British. We're a courageous people. And I believe the pendulum is going to swing back to an America that is kind and decent and respects freedoms and has a toleration for different viewpoints. But that pendulum isn't going to swing back automatically. It needs citizen engagement and activism. We've seen when citizens mobilize, we win. Jimmy Kimmel being reinstated, certain immigrant communities being more respected when hometowns have mobilized. And we need people today. And so my plea with folks is be in this fight with us for our country. It's for the nation, and we need patriots.
Amen to that. Congressman, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. You are welcome on the show anytime.
I'm honored to be on. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your work.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope this interview did for you what it did for me to help empower and lift my spirits a bit about things that are going on. And I appreciate that the representative was so candid about speaking about Democrats not fighting back enough or calling these things out. I think Gavin Newsom is doing a great job. Obviously, Ro Khanna himself is doing a great job at pointing these things out, being vocal about them. And I think the ultimate conclusion that we came to was, at least right now, while the Democrats have no power in the federal government, it is up to us, the citizenry, to call out these atrocities and fight back ourselves. And there is obviously some risk that comes with that. Risk that I, as a hetero-cis white male, am able to take on. So please, if you enjoy seeing me rant and at times being professional in front of a congressman and want to speak out in a hopefully risk-free way, drop a like on the video, subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in those comments down below. We appreciate all of your support for the work we're doing here at Really American. And for Really American, I'm Kenny Hesse. I'll see you guys in the next one.